We're back from a little vacay. This is the Heel to the Face podcast. Brian Cage is a new AEW champion, but not the new AEW champion, as we'll talk that and much more. Who's the winners? Who's the losers from Great American Bash and Fyter Fest? It all starts right now on the Heel to the Face podcast.
So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is the Heel to the Face podcast. We're back from a week off. My name is Jared. You can find me on social media at KRockJared. You can find my partner to the left or the right of me, depending how you're watching to us on YouTube. Sometimes, for some reason, they put him on the left, sometimes on the right. I don't dictate that. That is a thing of Skype, which we are currently using to do our program via YouTube. But either way, if you're listening via iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or any of the other places, you have no idea what I'm talking about, so don't worry about any of that. Let's just worry about, we're with Brandon Clements, Icebreaker21 on social media, Heel to the Face on Twitter. That's where you can find us. And Brandon, I'll just simply ask you the question of questions as we come off Great American Bash and Fyter Fest. Who won?
Keith Lee. That's the easy answer. Keith Lee is he's got 2 belts. I mean, he's got the North American, he's got the NXT title. He's Keith Lee. He's 2 belts. He's 2-belt champ. I mean, good for him.
Yeah. Well, Fyter Fest versus Great American Bash. Who won?
I will say this in a you're gonna be surprised by this. I think I gotta go with NXT. I think NXT slightly gets the advantage. I don't say it was a blowout by any means. What I will say here is I would say day 2 or night 2 for NXT was better than night 1 or day 1, and I think AEW's night 1 was better than AEW's night 2. So if you take the AEW night 1 and the NXT night 2, those are the two best shows of the week or of the 2 weeks, I would think. What do you think?
I think NXT won both nights, I think. Obviously, NXT had the advantage this past Wednesday for the fact that the AEW World title wasn't on the line as was originally scheduled. The main event of this whole pay-per-view has been pushed back a week until next week when it's Brian Cage versus Dean Ambrose or Jon Moxley. So I think next week AEW will certainly win as the World Women's title is on the line for NXT next week, but that doesn't go up against the quote-unquote World Championship of AEW. But overall, I think the problem with AEW is not a lot of matches outside the ring. With NXT, I mean, we had the street fight that started off night number 2. Obviously, we had a really good World Championship match. We had a strap match in there. I felt like AEW had more of the would be considered non-pay-per-view style matches, more like, Private Party when they fight 3 times because we had the World Tag titles on the line twice. Jericho and Orange Cassidy put on a really good match to finish out the whole thing. But other than that, I just didn't feel the pay-per-view quality. Maybe it was just because, Jon Moxley wasn't involved. They did bring out Brian Cage and gave him Taz's FTWF the World Championship belt that he once had. So it will be champ against champ, I guess, next week at Fight for the Fallen. And what do you think about that real quick, just getting off on a tangent? Fight for the Fallen, do you think, what is AEW doing going from one quote-unquote TV pay-per-view right to another quote-unquote TV pay-per-view? I mean, even if the championship's on the line next week, it should just probably still be a regular Dynamite in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think they're only doing it because of what's going on with the coronavirus and how it affected Mox. So I think that's why they rebranded it because of that. So I agree. Dynamite, it should just be Dynamite, just Dynamite. That's it. It shouldn't be, we shouldn't have 3 weeks of AEW special, pay-per-view, televised pay-per-views. Let's just, the 2-night thing the 2-week thing was cool. Let's get back to regular Dynamite and just keep moving and have it as a really good Dynamite where you're going to have the main event with Mox and Cage. I don't get it. I mean, I'm not giving AEW too much crap, but I do say overall the NXT has just been, I would say they have been the better product at least the last 2 weeks. Now I want to read you an interesting note that I found on online today. So NXT won for the third week in a row. Now here's the funny stat about that. AEW won every demographic besides the 50 plus. So if it wasn't for the 50 plus demographic, Dynamite wins. What are your thoughts on that?
How big is the 50 plus demographic in the world of wrestling? That is just strange to me that there even is a 50 demographic in professional wrestling, and that it would make that much difference.
Yeah, I mean AEW again, they won every single demo except for that one. I didn't know. It was just like, I'm just as surprised as you because the 50 plus demo.
How much did NXT win by the last 2 weeks?
I didn't see the exact numbers. I just got like these figures offline. It was the standard. They were within like 100,000, I think it was, like they normally have been. It was because the way the tweet came out, it was the ratings are very similar the last couple weeks. Special note though, NXT is winning because of 50 plus. AEW is dominating the rest. I'll be honest with you, when I saw that, I was very interested in that because how many 50 plus wrestling fans do you really know? I don't know.
Yeah, NXT barely beat it out. It was 759,000 to 715,000 total. So NXT beat it out by about 40,000. And like you said, AEW won in the other categories, but the 50 plus. But I guess the 50 plus didn't make. When they won slimmest of margins in all the other categories. So it wasn't like they won by 50,000 in one category and lost by 50,000 in another. It's like they won by, couple hundred in the other categories and then lost by 30,000 in the 50 plus. But still, yeah, the fact that the 50 plus is a demographic in the world of professional wrestling is very strange to me. That is something, we learn something new, I guess, every day.
Yeah, you know what though? I'll say this just to kind of finish that part. Do you think it's because of the pandemic? You think that's why you're seeing those ratings the way they are? Because 50 plus people don't have much to watch? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, maybe that is, and that could be it too, because I don't want to stereotype any group of people here, but I guess 50 plus to me seems like if they're watching wrestling, maybe they're the kind of people who watched wrestling a long time ago, but no longer watch wrestling, and they're only familiar with the WWE product because, as you even said, the 18 to 49 demographic, whatever, AEW won because they're the younger audience. They're the ones that are essentially driving wrestling on a day-to-day basis. The 50-plus audience, let's just say my dad, who is not a wrestling fan, and even if there's nothing to watch, I'm guessing he's still not watching WWE. But if he was to have to be forced to watch professional wrestling of any kind, he'd probably watch WWE. I mean, he's heard of The Rock. He's heard of Stone Cold. He's heard of Hulk Hogan. So he's heard of those people. Plus, I mean, USA Network, I guess USA and TNT are similar networks, but with the WWE brand on it, I guess flipping through the stations and maybe even the Great American Bash brand, again, we're talking somebody 50 plus who maybe watched wrestling as a kid. That's a brand that was around in the 80s. AEW is not a brand that a 50 plus year old would recognize if they watched wrestling only in the 80s.
I'll throw this at you. I don't know if this is going to stick or not, but if you go back to the Monday Night Wars back in the day, back in the late 90s, which was 20 years ago, those folks were our age. Maybe after the wars they tuned out because they didn't like the ruthless aggression era or
wrestling fans grow up, and I mean I'm a wrestling fan who won't grow up, but for the most part, I have a lot of friends who were wrestling fans growing up, and not a lot of them still exist. It's like the same kind of people who collect video games and toys and comic books and stuff. All your friends love wrestling at 14 years old. At 35 years old, it's quite a nitpick of who still likes professional wrestling.
True. It makes it interesting. When I saw that 50 plus, I had to get your thoughts on that because.
But I will definitely say I do think the pandemic has, with the fact that there's not a lot of live sports on, that people are starting. You obviously follow ESPN, SportsCenter, any of these Twitter accounts, these Facebook accounts. they're tweeting and putting out some things that are very unsports related. Obviously, they'd be putting out sports related tweets on SportsCenter, on the Twitter account for ESPN. You'd be seeing baseball highlights, basketball highlights. I mean, now you're seeing skateboarding tricks, weird dog videos. It's just that kind of thing we're looking at. So with WWE probably even being covered a little bit more on ESPN lately, and obviously FS1 has been playing a lot of old classic WWE pay-per-views. That could be part of the reason why, it's just something on TV. It's just something on TV, and it's something that's new. And, well, according to 50 Plus, I bet a lot of it is probably new anyways because, I mean, I'm going to guess they're not big WWE fans through and through, so how would they even know if it's pre-taped or live, or they just see wrestling?
Yeah, they see wrestling. They see some sort of sports. Yeah.
Yes. But overall, yeah, I agree. NXT won both nights. I liked NXT on both nights as well, but next week I'll be watching AEW first. And I'll even say this much. I watched AEW first both nights this time around.
Me too.
It seems kind of dumb. It seems kind of stupid again, a nitpick thing. But NXT Great American Bash, the set design versus AEW's typical design. Now, I mean, the set design wasn't too radical for NXT's Great American Bash. But, the banners, the cars, I mean, just that alone gave it that this feels more like a pay-per-view versus Fyter Fest just feels like a episode of Dynamite. Just simple.
Not to cut you off, though. I think the reason AEW's set was so, obviously it's similar to what they do every week. I think that was the point of it. It's just another Dynamite with a different banner on it.
Yeah. Well, NXT, I think, was definitely trying to go straight for that whole Great American Bash, and it's good for them because it felt more like a pay-per-view event, and I hope to see more of that. Obviously, we saw it in your house in Great American Bash, and Triple H said recently with Sports Illustrated he's hoping to bring more of these NXT events, these pay-per-views that maybe have gone retired down the line into the NXT world. And what are we going to see come NXT TakeOver SummerSlam weekend? As it seems not official from WWE yet, but pretty much everyone and anyone has said SummerSlam is going to happen at the Performance Center. Which would mean TakeOver is going to happen at Full Sail or the Performance Center. Are you looking forward to SummerSlam at all now with knowing it's coming from the Performance Center? Do you think this time around WWE is going to be able to pull something out of a hat to make it look a little better, or you think we're still stuck with a pretty bland-looking pay-per-view?
I think it's going to be a pretty bland pay-per-view, but the thing that I'm looking forward to, for SummerSlam coming up, is I've been reading reports that Randy Orton's been pushing a few names that he wants to wrestle, because here's the problem with the product right now. You're bringing back recycled wrestlers from 20 years ago because all these young and up-and-coming superstars, you're either not pushing them or you're just kind of pulling the rug out from underneath them. You're not really pushing any of these new stars. So Randy Orton is sticking his neck out and saying, hey, I want to work with Cole. I want to work with Ciampa. Like, if we can get some of that, I'm cool with that at SummerSlam, if it's one of those guys. But the actual report was Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam. I'm good with that. I think that would be a good enough match for me to tune in. I'm going to watch anyways, but I think just having that match alone, I think will be interesting to see how the two styles clash.
Speaking, we just talked about the 50 plus a minute ago. This will be why 50 plus doesn't watch professional wrestling anymore, because it's hard for people my age or even younger to watch professional wrestling. Extreme Rules, the horror show, Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, an eye for an eye match. The winner has to pull out the loser's eyeball. I mean, we deal with a lot in the world of professional wrestling, having to suspend our disbelief. But what kind of crap is this?
It's awful because, as Jericho said it, he pretty much called out WWE and said, "Hey guys, we did that months ago. We did it a long time ago, and we did it really well. Why are you stealing a cheap thing from us? That's kind of cheap. Why don't you do something different?"
When did AEW do this? I don't remember AEW having an eye for an eye match.
Yeah, it was when Moxley hurt his eye when he got the patch. It was an eye for an eye kind of segment. I don't know if it was considered a match. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't know if it was considered a match, but they did a storyline with Mox hurting his eye. So he had that patch on his eye. So this is WWE's way of taking away.
But was there was no match where the loser had to pull out the other person's eyes, like hold it up to the camera as a trophy?
No, I don't think it went to that extent. But I think what Jericho was saying is way to recycle and put your own spin on it to make it yours. Like Chris Jericho kind of took a shot at WWE and said, "Hey, great creative," because they just did that months ago with the Moxley eye patch. It's the whole thing is I think it's dumb. I think you're doing a disservice to not only Seth Rollins, but you're doing a disservice to Rey Mysterio. Because here's the thing, Rey Mysterio is not getting any younger. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, his contract's up here. He's actually wrestling on an expired contract. Why aren't we doing better things than a stupid match like this? I just think it's dumb. I think you're just wasting Rollins. You're wasting Rey. Let's do something better. Even if it's a steel cage, I'd rather watch a cage match with those two versus an eye for an eye. That's just me.
I guess my thought is, what are we supposed to believe when this match is over? That the other person got eye surgery?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. To me, it's. I mean, I know we all know. Like we hear from people that are not wrestling fans. Oh, wrestling's not real, right? Well, no kidding. But this makes it look even worse because let's be honest, they're not going to rip somebody's freaking eyeball out. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't see that happening.
No.
And it really just sometimes as a wrestling fan makes you scratch your head. And I think the pandemic is trying to pull this out. Now, I thought the perfect gimmick for this pay-per-view, you got that swap match between Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman at Extreme Rules. I mean, that's obviously going to be a pre-produced match. Going to probably feel like a House of Horrors match from Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt a while ago. That's enough. This eye for an eye match where somebody has to literally dislodge the opponent's eye to be declared the winner. Yeah, that just spews just ridiculousness. So we move on from that, and we move on to a certain female that the last time we were here in the month of June, about 2 weeks ago, it literally kind of just broke, and that is a certain female is now a free agent. Her last match wrestled in Impact Wrestling was back on March the 7th. She was scheduled to defend the World Championship. Remember, she, being Tessa Blanchard, as I allude to the World Champion, is no longer the Impact World Champion. She was the first female male World Champion in any of the major companies, WWE, AEW, Impact, WCW. She did what many thought China would have done back in the day, and that's be the first female World Champion. They gave her the belt about a year ago. She was scheduled to defend it at Slammiversary, but before her contract came to expire, because she's been sitting home due to the pandemic, Impact Wrestling kind of gave her some options to show up. She did not. So she was let go, and she was stripped of the championship belt, and she is a free agent. If you were WWE, if you were AEW, would you be bringing in the daughter of Tully Blanchard, Tessa Blanchard?
Oof. I mean, I would probably take a hard pass at this point. I think she.
Now, remember about 6 months ago, the issues, the racist, misogynistic comments she's accused of making back in the locker room in New Japan and other places like that as well.
Yeah, I have to pass. I really do. I mean, I think she's a talented competitor, but I think she carries too much baggage. I don't think it's a good move for either brand to take her on. I just don't think she's a good fit. I think it would just be bad PR. If I would say which big company would take her, I would say between WWE and AEW, I think AEW would take a chance on her. I don't think WWE with they're trying to be clean cut and PG, cater to the kids. They're not going to bring somebody like her in.
See, I think logistically you might be right when it comes to AEW, but I would love to see her in WWE because I would like to see her rival with Charlotte Flair. I mean, two daughters of legends, two daughters of people who are in the Four Horsemen. I mean, if not, that's a four horsewomen combination right there. I know we've tried to see it with Becky Lynch and Bayley and all them, but I mean, Tessa Blanchard has got that name, and that's second generation star against second generation star. That would be pretty awesome to see. And Charlotte Flair, I mean, she's been sitting there on top of that throne. Even when she's not the champ, she kind of sits up there alone as the best women's wrestler, partially because she's built very strongly. She is the daughter of Ric Flair. But finally have some even competition in there. Have another Charlotte Flair in there. That would be a unique situation.
I'll give you that. Would it be intriguing? Of course, but I think it's one of those things where Tessa. I think she's got too much baggage at this point. Maybe she goes off and does indies for a little bit, and then you kind of hopefully, because not say hopefully, but yeah, actually hopefully, because hopefully she cleans up her act and whatever those issues she had, whether it was the online bullying or bullying in the locker room, if she can change her approach and she's owned up to it and says, yep, I'm a changed person, then cool, then let's do it. But maybe to let the dust settle and let her go do an independent tour when the pandemic subsides and do some shows there. And then if she seems like she's got some, she's doing better, then maybe bring her into WWE. But I think logistically AEW would probably be the better fit because AEW is a little more edgy than WWE. So I think having an edgy character like Tessa Blanchard would be a good fit for AEW.
Do you see Heath Slater staying in WWE, or was that a one-off appearance on Monday Night Raw?
I'm gonna say he's coming back. I think they're gonna work some sort of contract out with him. I think maybe Drew being the champion right now and having a good relationship and being boys and best friends with Heath Slater, maybe that'll help Heath revitalize his career. I don't know, but I mean hopefully that's the case. Hopefully this wasn't a one-off, because what a crappy way to go as a one-off where you're pretty much sitting in the ring after Drew kicks you in the face and then Ziggler kicks your butt, and then Drew's back there to pick you up and you're giving yourselves a hug, so to speak. I don't think that would be a good idea, but it wouldn't surprise me, because why would WWE want to have somebody leave on a high note, so to speak? Why would you have somebody win a good match or get some good publicity and then go to AEW? So to me, I don't know. I just my gut tells me that they're working something out. He's probably going to take a pay cut, and he'll be in WWE, probably being a jobber like he always is.
We'll end this week's show with your opinion on the new look of the WWE United States Championship. And do you see somebody like MVP winning this championship belt? What do you, see with MVP going forward? Obviously, I thought a while back that he was done wrestling. Didn't he say it publicly?
Yeah.
But even shorter retirement than The Undertaker, he's in the ring and he's fighting for the U.S. title at Extreme Rules. But what's your take on the belt?
I think the belt, I just like the old belt, man. I just said, because if you remember correctly, you can fact check me, or our listeners can fact check me on this. But if I'm not mistaken, the previous belt that the Apollo's still hanging on to at this point was first held by Eddie Guerrero, if I'm not mistaken. So it brings back.
I think it went back to 2000, and this specific belt in WWE alone has been there the whole time that the U.S. belt has been in WWE.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's the last belt that hasn't, last belt from the Ruthless Aggression era that hasn't been changed up until now. So I was kind of hoping they would just leave the belt the way it was. The new belt looks cool, but I'm more of a nostalgic, old school kind of guy. And because I grew up as a big fan of Eddie Guerrero, knowing that he was the one that held that belt, the Ruthless Aggression era belt, I would have kept it there. That's just me. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I like the old belt better, but the new belt's not too bad. I think the biggest, I'll say this much, if I had to pick to save which belt, the U.S. belt or the Intercontinental belt, I would go back to the Intercontinental belt that we just had. That was really, I think, the biggest departure. I hated seeing the Intercontinental Championship go to what we currently have for the Intercontinental Championship. So I guess the U.S. belt looks better than the Intercontinental Championship. The Intercontinental Championship looks a little funky to me. The U.S. title looks pretty good. It looks pretty modern.
Yeah, I think the new U.S. title looks good. It looks good compared to the new Intercontinental title. The old Intercontinental title, I agree with you 110%. They should have just left it alone. It just had that cool look. Just leave it be. But you know what WWE does? They're just going to change things up, and we're just not going to like it, but we're just going to have to deal with it.
I think the big thing is obviously just merchandising. I mean, that's where because they got to sell new belts. Somebody bought the old U.S. belt. Somebody's got to buy the new one. The foam version of it, the kids version of it, the belts that go around your little action figures. Yep. I mean, why do you think they made Hell in a Cell red? Why do you think they changed up the Elimination Chamber? There's toys to be sold.
Oh, of course. It's a money-making scheme for merchandise purposes, which I totally get as a guy who likes to mix make money too. I get it, but at the same time, why don't we just leave certain things alone and just leave it the way it is? I don't know why you have to change it so much. I just don't get it.
So next week we will talk maybe a little Impact Slammiversary. That's going to be next Saturday night. Next week also WWE Extreme Rules on the 19th. The horror show. We'll get you ready for that pay-per-view as well. And we'll talk if we finally got Brian Cage versus Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship, who came out victorious. This time around, I don't think there'll be a spoiler. And I guess I'll say that before we cut away, did you hear the rumors after the NXT spoiler came out that WWE was trying to backtrack and say that they recorded alternate endings for the Great American Bash?
It wouldn't surprise me because I've heard that in the past. So this doesn't shock me at all. Nothing surprised me in WWE. So alternate endings doesn't surprise me.
I think that they were mad that the results got out because the picture that was taken from 2 weeks ago was the exact site we saw at Great American Bash with Keith Lee holding up the championship belt. They tried to say that there were alternate endings, so maybe Keith Lee wins in one and Adam Cole wins in the other. I don't buy that at all. I just feel like they were trying to go back and try to swerve fans into still staying tuned to Great American Bash, saying you don't know what's going to happen. I think they had the result was in the bag and they were pissed off that the result got out.
I'm just going to say this. I disagree with you on it. I do think they did alternate endings. I mean, as we've seen with the Randy Orton and Edge match, they can edit things a certain way. So with everything being pre-taped, I don't see why they wouldn't, have alternate endings because then they can change the narrative if they need to.
Well, that's the thing. They would have to definitely change the whole narrative because if you didn't have Keith Lee winning and you had Adam Cole winning, I mean, that obviously I think is going to change the future. Adam Cole, I think, lost because of the fact that he's not too far away from getting called up. If he obviously won the belt, things changed.
Really quick, though, speaking of Adam Cole, do you think with having no fans in the arenas, do you think WWE should just hold off on his promotion and call
I think they should. On Matt Riddle's promotion, I think they should hold off on everybody's promotion, but that's not going to happen. WWE is going to keep moving things forward. I mean, it looks right now that the earliest that they're looking at bringing fans in is the end of September. A lot of people are starting to be realistic here and say we might not have fans until the Royal Rumble. So with that being said, WWE is not going to slow down anytime soon. They're going to just keep moving forward. SummerSlam, they really wanted that to be in front of a crowd, but it doesn't look like it's going to be. So I think there's really no option now. Obviously, with WrestleMania, when WrestleMania and that stuff happened, I still believe WWE should have held off. Give it some time to breathe. See what's happening. Don't rush to anything. But now I think we're far enough along that, WWE's got to do what WWE's got to do because there is no immediate end in sight. We know exactly what this is, and we pretty much know that it's going to be like this for quite a period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been 4 months. So, I mean, we're almost 4 months now. I mean, they're already canceling. They're already postponing of, like, ACC, I heard, Ivy League. Things are just going to get backtracked, hopefully.
Scheduled for October that are getting pulled back, yes.
Yeah, it's
you don't know where you're going to be. So if they don't call up Adam Cole now, Royal Rumble?
I know it's a slippery slope. I mean, as a Matt Riddle fan, I was hoping they would hold off, but how long can you hold off? We just don't know. So you got. I mean, Adam Cole's coming up soon. I would expect him. I would expect him at SummerSlam or like the Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown after SummerSlam.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition. Hey, you know what? He might be at the SummerSlam the Friday before. I heard it's in the same city as SummerSlam, so he might be there. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Heel of Faith podcast. For Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, you can find him on Twitter at @Icebreaker21. Myself at K-Rock Jarrett and the show at Heel to the Face next week. As I said a few minutes ago, before we had a false ending, Slammiversary, Extreme Rules, Jon Moxley, and Brian Cage. Till next week, this has been the Heel to Face podcast.